Hello and welcome back to the AI Ethics Now podcast. My name is Tom Ritchie and I'm really pleased today to be joined by Jadee from Vanta. Jadee brings over 20 years of cybersecurity experience across highly regulated sectors, from managing information security at Target to leading enterprise security and technology strategy at Code 42, where she co-authored the definitive book on insider risk. She now serves as the Chief Information Security Officer at Vanta, a leading trust management platform that helps organizations automate security compliance and demonstrate trust to their customers. Jadee, hello.
Hi, Tom. Thanks for having me.
How you doing? You okay?
I'm doing great.
Great. So, Jadee, I wonder if you can say a little bit more about what brings you to this conversation on AI ethics, please.
Yeah, this is such an important conversation. As security leaders, we've been really living through defining moments of technology change. I think this technology change with AI is one of the biggest things we've seen in so many years. Not too long ago, the idea of AI and machines sort of overriding human security response would have been completely laughed at. Today, we're not that far away. We're sitting here thinking through where are all the ways that we can apply AI within our security organization in order to increase speed, efficiency, and so it's definitely like this defining moment in technology and defining moment within the security organization as well. I think as you think about like threats as how they continue to accelerate year after year, the conversation around AI really matters because we're talking about like leveraging AI as defenders at the same time that we're seeing AI being used from the attacker point of view as well.
Yeah, and I think it's a really interesting point you make about the role of the human in the loop and what that role will look like in future, particularly as AI can be used in both of the ways you've described. And I wonder, diving a little bit further into that, how do you think AI is fundamentally changing that relationship between the security threats and security solutions that you've already mentioned?
Really, with like most new technologies such as AI or cloud or whatever it may be, the reality is it can be used by defenders and then as well as attackers. So just like we're using AI for good right now to increase efficiency, respond to alerts quicker, attackers are using AI to automate the scale of phishing attacks and malware changes and identity theft. And so we've seen that in our state of trust report that respondents have said that over half of the people that we surveyed have faced this AI attack in this past year. This is getting much harder to identify and respond to in a manner that continues to keep companies secure. And so we have all of that going on the attacker side. And at the same time, defenders are working as quickly as we can to deploy AI to detect the anomalies or respond in real time to low risk threats. And so we have this like dichotomy going of like good guys using AI in ways to really speed up the response, but at the same time, we have attackers using it to up level their sophistication and their approach in attacking companies. I think the security solutions and even security teams that really come out on top here are not going to be the ones that apply AI to everything, but instead they figure out the practical applications that help accelerate teams without a high degree of risk tied to autonomy of AI. So in large part, they need to step back and think about if we apply AI to every aspect of our security program, something terrible will happen. You can't have people that are responsible for like making all the controls. You can't have that turned over to an AI because AI models will make the wrong decision at some point. And so really thinking through like where do you need human in the loop, where are you able to apply AI where it is low risk, and if it does go wrong, something terrible won't happen. I think in large part we've like thought about that as part of like the Vanta product. where we've given a lot of choice to our customers of like things that they might want to use AI for. And if they want to turn the capability off, they could. But we're not applying AI in the Vanta product to incredibly high risk functions. We're applying it in a very practical way where you still have human in the loop to look at the response.
And I wonder, do you think that from what you've described, is this creating a sort of arms race? Or do you think there is a way to perhaps break the cycle that you're seeing of attackers and defenders and how they're using this?
I think that there is a bit of an arms race, but just like the defenders are going to have issues with AI applications and it doing the wrong thing because it's not deterministic, attackers are going to have that exact same issue. They're going to try to make the AI do something terrible and morph the malware and do X, Y, and Z. And because this is not deterministic, it is not going to get it right every time. And so we sort of have the same problems on both sides. And so again, like I think the teams that come out on top on this are going to be the ones that like have really thought through AI application and like applying it in places where it is low risk and applying it in a way where you've inserted the human in the loop in the right spots to make sure that like we have the outcomes that we want.
And you mentioned the work that Vanta are doing, particularly with that role of the human in the loop and where to apply some of this. How aware do you think other organizations are that this kind of quite fundamental shift is happening in their security infrastructures?
Honestly, I think a lot of security teams are either they've adopted AI but haven't applied it like broadly yet, or they've adopted it and they've figured out the places to like apply a human in the loop. I think the Vanta product has even designed where we have AI in the Vanta product in a similar fashion, where we're not going to have AI running around and creating a bunch of things that are like high importance. We want to make sure that we're like applying it to the things that automate some of these like more low risk tasks and make sure that we still have the human in the loop to like review things and approve things prior to anything happening.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think it's an interesting one to reflect on, even in how we, in an education context, are thinking about ways of using AI. And I, reflecting on it, I'm not sure we have too many conversations about the security of that and the impact that could have on our infrastructure. We talk a lot about the ethics of it. We talk a lot about data usage, but that discussion around security perhaps doesn't come up in the same way.
Interesting.
And I wonder, from the state of trust report that you mentioned, there was a stat in there about 65% of leaders saying that their use of agentic AI is exceeding their understanding of it. And I wanted to ask, what concerns you most about that gap between adoption that we're seeing and then the understanding of those who are choosing to adopt it?
Yeah, the state of a trust report was really interesting. I mean, we asked, hundreds of security people around the world questions about their use of AI. And I think the thing that we learned is that 4 out of 5 told us, hey, they're either using it already or they're planning to use it. And 78% of the teams mentioned that they're comfortable with the use of AI in decision making. And so, both of those stats like really showed us that people are jumping in. They are ready, and there's lots of use and lots of adoption. I think the other thing that we learned in that stat is 48% don't really have a way to figure out how to give autonomy or how to adopt it in the right way. And so that's kind of the I guess the flip side of this. We have a lot of use, but we don't have everyone saying, "Hey, I know exactly what to do with this." When we're talking about AI under the larger definition, the stat of 61% of companies say their use of AI exceeds their understanding. I mean, that's absolutely true. The stat tells us that we still have a lot to learn about how these models work. Today, everything that we've done in security has been deterministic, meaning we set up a thing and a rule, and then a thing happens every time. So if this, if that, then this, do that. The scary part with AI for all of us is it's not deterministic. And this means that we can't really be sure how something will operate. We can do a lot of training, and that's in large part what we've been doing. But even with a lot of training, the model will still do what the model will do. So it doesn't mean we should shy away. I think it really just means that we have to be thoughtful about our applications of AI kind of throughout our organizations.
And I wonder, you mentioned, and I've seen it a lot again in different sectors about companies looking into how they can begin to use AI in their area. From where you sit on the security side of things, are you seeing companies adopting AI because they genuinely need it, or is it more because they feel they have to try to keep up with this new thing, in the way that we would have done with the internet and previous kind of innovations that we've seen?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a little of both. I do think that companies deep down are thinking, oh my gosh, we have to adopt this if we want to keep up with everybody that we compete with. But I also think that for some parts of the organization, we've been underwater for a really long time. And we've been like waiting for something that is going to like help alleviate some of that burden, especially in like security and operations. There are so many alerts and so many threats. And so, any opportunity we have to make things a bit more efficient for our teams, we're absolutely going to jump into that.
Yeah, and it's I think really important you mentioned about the teams and the user. And if we come back to what we spoke about right at the beginning about the human in the loop, I think one of the key aspects is around how can we convince people to begin to trust in these systems. And I wonder, how do you think organizations can work to build that genuine trust in their AI systems when they're simultaneously using AI to both attack and defend? How do you see that being translated to the everyday person who's there?
It's a great question. I think most applications that have like AI modules and whatnot need to offer transparency, and they need to offer basically optionality in like how AI is applied, because not everybody's risk tolerance is the same, and people that use different applications like need to make those decisions themselves. And so, again, like, one of the things we're really proud of at Vanta is like we've applied AI in all of these different places throughout the product that makes our governance, risk, and compliance teams so much faster and so much more efficient. But at the same time, like, we're giving you ability for choice in like what you use and what you don't use and how you use it and where you want to have applications kind of throughout your program. And so I think for true adoption, it really starts with like transparency of like what the AI is set up to do, as well as like choice. I do think that most people we see are adopting this and see the benefits, and so that's something that is really exciting for us. Like, we've built these like really great AI applications within Vanta, and folks have like largely like jumped in to use almost every feature and functionality of it because they do see the benefit. And in every like risk management decision when you're thinking about using technology, there's like this risk versus reward thing that companies go through. And what they're seeing is, wow, the places that we've applied AI and automation in Vanta, the reward is way outweighing the risk. And so we want to use those features.
Yeah, and I think kind of contemplating the work that you've done with Vanta and the way that you're helping organizations, how do you verify that an AI security tool is then doing what it says it's doing, given the conversations we've had about it being non-deterministic? Is there a clear way, or is it something that you've worked on specifically in your context?
In large part, like, you can't predict the outcome for non-deterministic models. So full stop. What you can do though is you can apply these models in a low risk places. You can figure out where you do need human in the loop. I think you can also do a lot of things related to like governance of AI within an organization. Our state of trust report said something, one of our stats in there tied to framework adoption tied to AI, and only 48% of the respondents said that they had a framework to manage AI autonomy and control. We would obviously recommend like going through a AI review or authorization. Things like the NIST, AI RMF are great resources, as well as the ISO 42001. My team, as we applied AI kind of throughout our organization, we went through the ISO 42001 certification, leveraging Vanta to make sure that we had the right like controls and aspects of management that we wanted in place as the company deployed more and more AI. I think the other really interesting thing that we're seeing in this space is model creators are starting to realize like, hey, like people aren't totally sure of this like brand new technology. And so what are the things that we need to do to help create a bit more control and visibility as to what's going on? And so, in addition to like delivering a model, there's like new compliance APIs so that you can like get more insight into what is really going on with the model, what are the prompts people are using, what's the access and identity aspects of like what data it pulls. All of those are just like the core basic security controls. But model creators are now like, wow, we should make sure that we're like exposing all that information so there are checks and balances, and so there is a bit more adoption and a bit more comfort in adopting these solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've mentioned, JD, there a lot of different frameworks and governance structures that you've used at Vanta and that others will be using. I wonder, though, from your point of view, is there anything missing from those current frameworks and structures that you wish existed or you wish could be brought in?
Yeah, one of the things that we do so well at Vanta in the Vanta solution is a way to have like continuous monitoring of all the controls tied to a framework. And so if you take your ISO 27001 or you take SOC 2 or any of the NIST frameworks, we want to have like controls that continuously monitor for completion and effectiveness of that control being in place, not just static, but like over time. I think with like some of the new AI frameworks, we are getting closer to having abilities to do continuous monitoring, but we're not quite there. And so, what I would love to see is at some point in our future, the ISO 42001 AI framework and the NIST AI RMF to have deep, like continuous monitoring of controls tied directly to like what's going on in the organization. I think we're making progress towards this. Things like, hey, don't train on my data. That's configuration. You can constantly check that that's in place. Identity, like who has access to what, who has access to what data. Those are things you can constantly check are in place, but we need more. And so that's a place where I would love to see built out over time. We're going to be there ready to go as these controls become available to monitor, but something that I think we have a ways to go yet.
Yeah, and it's interesting to reflect on in an education space as well. So if I think about the AI policies that I've seen in universities, we have a lot of discussions about how the moment that we get it through the correct governance structures to be able to get it passed and approved, AI itself has completely changed. If it takes us 3 months or 6 months, by the time we get it through, we then have to completely rethink it. Thinking more in the space that you work in, do you think that the frameworks you've mentioned can keep pace with how quickly AI is evolving?
Yeah, that's a great question. One, we had a really great conversation around this in DC a few months back, where I think, we need to think about policy creation in a very different way. We can't keep thinking about it as this like static thing that we update once a year or once every 3 years. I would love to get to a point where policy creation happens as AI technology changes. And I think, we have a huge opportunity, policy creators, education, everybody has this opportunity to like really flip this on its head. If you think about like the model around like testing of a control and how we went from like static to let's just test this thing every day, I think we have to like take that same application to policy. So instead of policy creation once a year, once every 3 years, like how do we create policy every day that's like living, breathing, updates happen as model stuff changes, as AI evolves, as new threats come out. And so that is a huge opportunity for us. I think that I'm excited to see where the industry goes here, but having static policy is definitely not going to work in this space.
Yeah, and it's something I think, again, within the education space, it would be great if we could have that, because even if we think super simply, we give students a policy on how they can use AI in their assessments. And by the time they get to it in week 5 or week 10, the AI itself has completely changed. And then it's impossible for us to know perhaps the ways in which they've engaged with it. I wonder, JD, for the final question, and I ask this to everyone, what steps do you think that we can take to ensure a more positive future with AI, please?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of doom and gloom discussion sometimes with AI. I mean, certainly we've seen a lot more like AI generated attacks, and you read that in the State of Trust report. But at the end of the day, I really think that people need to take a step back and almost treat AI application as like a risk management problem, and deeply ask yourselves and your companies, like, what could go wrong with application of AI in X scenario? And we need to treat AI security as this like shared infrastructure where we have like joint risk decisions about where we're applying it and where we're not. I think that if we use it responsibly, we make the right application or we make the right decisions on applications, it can be really a game changer for us. And so that would be like my like ask and my suggestion as we think about like how do we like fully adopt this within our organization in a truly effective way.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. I was scribbling down as you were talking to take to the next time that we talk about this in a university context as well. Thank you so much, JD. It's been great to speak to you and a really good opportunity to hear about a different perspective on AI and the use of it than perhaps we normally have. I think this focus on security is something that does go undiscussed quite a lot. We do tend to talk about AI ethics, as I mentioned, and other ways in which we can apply this technology. But this focus on security has been really, really useful. So thank you so much. Have a lovely rest of the day, and I'll speak to you very soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tom.